Let's be honest, the way you speak to a man tells him everything he needs to know about how he should treat you. If your words are unsure, your tone overly accommodating, or you're constantly tiptoeing around his ego, you're already compromising your value. A high-value woman doesn't speak to impress, she speaks to express. And when she talks to a man, she does it with purpose, clarity, and self-respect. She doesn't make demands out of fear. She makes statements rooted in self-worth. Instead of saying, "Why don't you ever call me?" she says, "I value communication." If that's not something you're consistent with, we may not be aligned. Do you feel the difference in that? One is needy, the other is powerful. She doesn't text paragraphs when she feels hurt. She doesn't go silent, hoping he'll guess what's wrong. She speaks up. Not with rage, not with sarcasm, but with centered honesty. I felt dismissed when you brushed off what I said earlier. I value feeling heard in a relationship. Boom! Clear, calm, unshakable. High-value communication isn't about controlling the other person. It's about clearly showing who you are and what you expect, and allowing the other person to either rise to it or reveal that they can't. She doesn't entertain disrespect, not even a little. If a man is inconsistent, flaky, or talks down to her, she doesn't start explaining why that's wrong. She removes her presence. Her silence is intentional, not passive-aggressive. It's powerful. You see, a high-value woman knows her words are a mirror of her standards. When she speaks to a man, she's not trying to convince him to see her value. She already knows her value. Her tone reflects that. She's warm, but not weak. She's kind, but not a pushover. And she knows that the most attractive thing in any room is someone who doesn't need to be the loudest to be the most respected. Let's talk about confrontation, because this is where most people either go silent or explosive. She does neither. When something feels off, she addresses it early. Not after 10 red flags. Not after crying in silence. Early. She doesn't say, "You made me feel..." She says, "When that happened, I felt..." She doesn't accuse, she expresses. That one shift changes everything. It turns a fight into a conversation. It turns resistance into reflection. And listen, she doesn't try to be cool by pretending nothing bothers her. She's not afraid to say, "I don't chase people. If this connection matters to you, show up for it. If not, I'm okay letting it go." No drama, just direction. This is how she filters men. She doesn't sit around analyzing mixed signals. She gives clear ones and watches who rises to meet them. And when a man gives her clarity, respect, consistency, she acknowledges it. Appreciation is part of her language too. Being high value doesn't mean being cold. It means being conscious of what deserves her warmth. She makes it easy to understand her, because clarity is a gift to both people. There's no confusion when she speaks, no second guessing, and the truth is, men don't remember every word you say, but they remember how they feel when they talk to you. Do they feel safe, respected, inspired to be better? Or do they feel like they're constantly trying to decode your moods? A high-value woman leaves no one guessing. She speaks from a place of peace, and peace is magnetic. So next time you feel the urge to over-explain, apologize for your standards, or stay quiet just to keep the peace. Remember, the way you talk to a man is the way you train him to see you. Speak from your worth. Speak like someone who knows exactly what she brings to the table and isn't afraid to eat alone when that table isn't respected. That's how high-value women talk to men. And that's how they get spoken to in return. A high-value woman understands that strength doesn't require shouting. She doesn't confuse assertiveness with aggression, nor does she believe that making a point means dominating a conversation. Her power lies in her ability to stay composed even when emotions run high. She communicates her needs, her expectations, and her limits with grace, not force. And when she sets a boundary, she doesn't do it with a trembling voice or with fire in her eyes. She does it with certainty. She knows that how she delivers her message matters just as much as what she says. When something bothers her, she doesn't explode. She doesn't wait until the resentment boils over and comes out in a storm of accusations. Instead, she addresses things early and calmly. She doesn't say, "You always do this," or "You never listen," because she knows that words like always and never shut people down. She chooses language that opens a conversation instead of ending it. It might sound like, "I feel uncomfortable with what happened earlier. I wanted to bring it up because it matters to me." That's not soft. That's strength with restraint. It shows she's not scared to be honest. And she's not trying to shame someone into changing. She's inviting them into a respectful dialogue. This kind of language isn't just more effective, it's more emotionally intelligent. And men, real men, respond to that. A high-value woman doesn't need to raise her voice because she knows the weight of her silence. She knows how to pause and breathe before reacting. She understands that her response isn't just about the moment, it's about setting the tone for the whole relationship. She doesn't say things she'll regret just to win an argument. She doesn't attack character. She speaks about behavior. That's the difference between someone trying to prove they're right and someone trying to build something healthy. She also understands that boundaries are not about controlling another person's actions. They're about clearly defining what she will and won't accept in her life. She doesn't try to fix or change anyone. She simply shows through her words and actions the standards she lives by. If someone can't meet them, she doesn't yell, she walks. Her absence speaks, and when she speaks up, she's not doing it to get a reaction. She's doing it to stay in alignment with who she is. That's what makes her different. That's what makes her magnetic. Her self-respect isn't up for negotiation. It's not conditional. She doesn't make it someone else's job to validate her boundaries. She sets them and she honors them, regardless of the other person's reaction. There's a quiet confidence in the way she communicates. It's not performative. It's not dramatic. It's rooted in self-awareness. She doesn't throw ultimatums out of insecurity. She doesn't weaponize silence. She doesn't chase or plead. She expresses, then observes. That's how she finds out who's capable of emotional maturity and who's just pretending. She knows that assertiveness means being direct without being destructive. It means saying what you feel and what you need without making the other person the enemy. If a man cancels plans at the last minute, she doesn't go cold or sarcastic. She might say, "I value reliability and last-minute changes like this don't work for me." That sentence alone says everything, without yelling, without begging, without bitterness. And most importantly, she doesn't just talk this way to others, she talks this way to herself. She sets the tone for how others treat her by treating herself with kindness, discipline, and dignity. She doesn't beat herself up for having needs. She doesn't silence herself to keep someone around. She knows that her voice is her power, and she uses it not to control, but to connect. At the end of the day, her assertiveness isn't about dominance. It's about balance. It's the way she holds space for herself in every interaction. It's the way she protects her peace without building walls. It's how she maintains her identity while still being open to love. This calm, firm, and intentional communication style doesn't just earn her respect, it filters out anyone who's not ready to give it. And that's the real power in how a high-value woman talks. Not just to a man, but to the world. A high-value woman understands the art of asking without chasing. She knows her desires are valid, but she never begs to have them met. She isn't afraid to voice her expectations, whether that's consistency, effort, communication, or emotional availability. But she does it in a way that's grounded, not needy. She approaches conversations from a place of self-worth, not scarcity, and that changes everything. When she wants something from a man, she doesn't shrink herself to seem cool or low maintenance. She knows pretending not to care only leads to misalignment later. Instead, she's honest about what she needs to feel connected. She might say, I enjoy hearing from you regularly. It helps me feel closer. There's no pressure in that sentence, no demand, just clarity. And that's her secret. She invites connection without forcing it. She expresses, then watches. She doesn't chase down responses or try to manage someone else's pace. She lets the other person show whether they're capable of meeting her energy. If they step up, great. If they don't, she steps away. Not to teach them a lesson, but to protect her peace. Because she knows love cannot be pulled from someone, it must be offered freely. She doesn't repeat herself over and over, hoping he'll suddenly get it. She says it once with calm confidence. And if her needs are overlooked, she doesn't launch into criticism or beg for attention. She simply re-evaluates whether this person is right for her. Her clarity filters, it doesn't chase. Because she knows when you chase someone, you often end up catching someone who doesn't want to stay. She pays attention to actions, not just words. If a man says he's into her but puts in minimal effort, she doesn't fill in the gaps with excuses. She doesn't text again to check in or pretend to be okay with breadcrumbs. She communicates interest and then she leans back. She knows if someone is truly invested, they'll show up. And she's willing to wait for someone who does. This kind of woman doesn't manipulate through guilt or over-explain to justify her standards. She doesn't say things like, I just really want us to talk more, but if you're busy, it's okay, I guess. I just feel a bit... Instead, she says, communication matters to me. I'm looking for consistency. If that's not where you are right now, I understand. But I won't be staying in something that leaves me guessing. Calm, clear, respectful, and entirely in control of her own emotional experience. She doesn't fall into the trap of believing that the more she does, the more he'll feel. She doesn't double text or overgive. She's generous with her presence, but she doesn't overextend to win someone over. If she reaches out and doesn't feel it being reciprocated, she doesn't panic. She pivots, not with bitterness, but with self-awareness. This woman knows asking for something doesn't make her weak. In fact, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to be vulnerable and say, here's what I want. But it also takes self-respect to say, and if I don't receive it, I'm not afraid to walk away. She operates from a place of abundance, not fear. She believes that someone will meet her where she is, and she won't lower herself to stay in the company of someone who won't. Even when she feels emotionally attached, she maintains this posture. She may care deeply for someone, but she never abandons herself to keep them close. Her love is strong, but it's not desperate. It's rooted in choice, not clinging. And that's why it's so powerful, because it's given freely. not bargained with. She doesn't play games, but she understands energy. If she initiates and sees no effort in return, she knows how to step back without resentment. Not to trigger a response, but to honor herself. And if the other person notices and steps up, great. If they don't, she's already moving forward. Gracefully, but with finality. In relationships, she knows mutual effort is non-negotiable. She'll express her desires clearly, but she won't carry the connection alone. She knows partnership isn't about pulling someone forward, it's about walking together. So she communicates openly and then lets people show her who they are. That's the essence of asking without chasing. It's not about playing hard to get, it's about being easy to lose if someone doesn't treat you well. It's about expressing interest, then stepping back to let alignment reveal itself. This approach doesn't just attract the right kind of man, it naturally repels the wrong ones. And in the end, that's her power. She doesn't force, she flows. She doesn't chase love, she allows it to find her, meet her, and grow with her. Because she knows anything that's truly meant for her will never need to be begged for. A high-value woman understands the difference between emotional honesty and emotional chaos. She knows how to communicate her feelings without allowing those emotions to take over the conversation. She doesn't explode, blame, or create unnecessary drama to prove a point. Instead, she chooses to express how she feels with clarity, maturity, and calm presence. Her emotions are valid, but they don't control her. She owns them, and that's what gives her strength. When something upsets her, she doesn't lash out in the heat of the moment. She takes a breath, reflects, and then speaks from a place of understanding rather than reaction. She might feel hurt, frustrated, or disappointed, but instead of making it about the other person's character, she speaks about the impact of their behavior. She doesn't say, "You're selfish." She says, "When that happened, I felt like my needs weren't considered." This simple shift changes everything. It allows for connection, not defensiveness. She understands that expressing emotion is not the same as emotional dumping. She doesn't flood her partner with complaints, accusations, or guilt tripping. Instead, she gets to the core of what she's feeling and communicates it in a way that can actually be heard. She respects herself too much to be passive-aggressive and respects the relationship too much to let silence breed resentment. She faces discomfort head-on, not to create conflict, but to create clarity. When she feels hurt, she doesn't bury it to avoid tension. She also doesn't escalate the situation to get a reaction. She sits with her feelings, then brings them forward when she's ready to speak with purpose. She might say, "Something you said earlier has been sitting with me. Can we talk about it?" Her tone is calm, her words are intentional, and her timing is wise. She chooses communication over confrontation, and that's what makes her powerful. Being emotionally honest means being vulnerable, and that takes courage. It's not always easy to say, "That hurt me," or "I felt insecure when that happened." But she knows that sharing her truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is essential for intimacy. She doesn't expect her partner to read her mind. She uses her voice even when it shakes. But she never uses her emotions as a weapon. She doesn't guilt someone into caring. She doesn't cry to manipulate. She doesn't withdraw affection to punish. She also doesn't hide behind the mask of being unbothered. She's not trying to be untouchable. She knows that pretending not to care only leads to disconnect. Her emotional honesty allows the other person to see the real her. Not a performance, not a facade, but a grounded woman who feels deeply and loves consciously. A willingness to be emotionally present gives the relationship space to grow. She's not afraid of expressing her needs, but she does so without entitlement. She understands the difference between asking for reassurance and demanding it. She might say, "I felt distant from you this week and I need more connection." She's not blaming, she's revealing. And in doing so, she gives her partner the opportunity to show up. If they do, great. If they don't, she takes that information seriously. Her emotions guide her choices, but they never override her standards. When she's upset, she gives herself space to cool down before speaking. She doesn't make assumptions or jump to conclusions. She listens as much as she speaks. Emotional honesty, for her, is a two-way street. It's about sharing, but also about hearing the truth from the other side. She welcomes feedback, even when it's hard to hear, because growth matters to her more than ego. She doesn't expect perfection from herself or from anyone else, but she does expect accountability, starting with herself. If she overreacts, she owns it. If she misinterprets something, she's open to correcting it. She doesn't seek to be right, she seeks to understand. That's why her emotional honesty is so disarming. It's not a performance, it's a practice, one rooted in courage, humility, and emotional maturity. She knows that strong relationships are not built on perfection, but on presence. And being emotionally present means telling the truth about how you feel without turning it into chaos. It means being strong enough to be soft, being open enough to be seen, and being wise enough to express feelings in a way that builds connection instead of breaking it. This kind of communication doesn't just create respect, it creates safety. The people around her don't feel attacked when she speaks. They feel trusted. They feel safe to open up too. And that's the gift she brings. Her emotional honesty gives permission for real connection to happen, not just surface level interactions, but deep, meaningful, authentic bonds. She leads with feeling, but she's guided by wisdom. And that balance is what makes her unforgettable. A high-value woman doesn't just listen to what a man says, she watches what he does. She understands that words can be beautiful, charming, and even persuasive, but actions are where the truth lives. She's not easily swayed by grand promises or poetic confessions. She listens, yes, but she also observes. And if the behavior doesn't align with the language, she doesn't make excuses. She makes decisions. She knows that consistency is the foundation of trust. So when a man says he wants to be with her, but doesn't follow through, she doesn't get caught in the cycle of waiting. She might appreciate the sentiment, but she knows that if there's no follow-up, the words mean very little. She pays attention to the patterns, not the potential. Because she's learnt that potential doesn't build a relationship, commitment does. If a man tells her he misses her but never makes plans to see her, she doesn't get swept up in the emotion. She doesn't send a paragraph asking why he hasn't made time. She simply makes a note and then steps back. She doesn't invest more energy than she's receiving. And she definitely doesn't chase. She understands that her value is not up for negotiation. If someone sees it, they show up. If they don't, she doesn't try to convince them. She also doesn't fall for inconsistency masked as passion. She knows the difference between someone who's emotionally intense and someone who's emotionally available. A man who comes and goes, who gives and withdraws, who says all the right things when he's around, but disappears when it matters. That man is not confusing to her. He's clearly not ready. And she's not interested in fixing, waiting, or teaching someone how to treat her. This kind of woman doesn't just look at how a man treats her in the good times. She notices how he responds when things get uncomfortable? Does he show up when there's tension? Does he take accountability when he's wrong? Does he listen when she expresses a need? She knows that anyone can be kind when it's easy. What matters is how someone acts when it's hard. That's what reveals their character. She knows that attraction and alignment are not the same. She may be deeply drawn to someone, but if the behavior doesn't match what she's looking for, she'll walk. Not because it's easy, but because she refuses to betray herself. She's not here to build a connection on hope alone. She's looking for reliability, honesty, and effort. If those aren't present, she lets go with grace. And she doesn't ignore red flags because of chemistry. She doesn't get lost in the thrill of a strong emotional pull. She pays attention to how she feels after the conversations, the dates, the nights together. Does she feel secure, respected, valued? Or does she feel uncertain, anxious, and unheard? Her body and her intuition are her guides. If something feels off, she doesn't override it with logic or fantasy. She trusts herself enough to walk away. She also knows that time doesn't equal investment. A man can be around for months or years without ever truly showing up. She evaluates effort, not duration. If she's constantly initiating, always making adjustments, or repeatedly expressing the same need with no change, she knows it's not love, it's labor. And she's not in the business of emotional labor for someone who won't meet her half. She doesn't listen to apologies that aren't backed by change. She hears them, but she watches what follows. If nothing shifts, she doesn't argue. She doesn't try to prove her worth or convince someone to take her seriously. She removes herself from situations that require her to beg for respect, because she knows that her presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. When someone is truly interested, she doesn't have to question it. It's not inconsistent. It's not confusing. It's steady. So when things are unclear, she doesn't overanalyze. She accepts the message for what it is, a lack of alignment. She doesn't waste time interpreting mixed signals. She honors herself by making clear decisions based on observable actions. She has high standards, not just for others, but for herself. She doesn't tolerate behavior that she wouldn't engage in. She shows up fully and expects the same. She communicates openly and watches who's emotionally mature enough to meet her there. Those who do earn her respect and trust. Those who don't are left behind, not with bitterness, but with certainty. And this is her power. She doesn't rely on guesswork. She trusts what she sees. She listens with her ears, but she believes with her eyes. She knows that real love isn't just spoken, it's shown. And anything less than that simply isn't enough for the life she's building.